Well, we welcome everyone here to this meeting of the Historic Preservation Committee for Santaquin City. To go ahead and get started, would someone like to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance?
I'm going to do that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And would anyone like to lead us in an invocation or prayer or thought, special thought?
I could do that.
Okay.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity to be gathered today as board members and community members to discuss the wonderful topic of historic preservation. And we're grateful for our history, a rich history in Santaquin, and grateful to be able to perpetuate that in our future. And we're grateful to be able to meet and understand and discuss ways to continue to find resources to preserve our past that helps then perpetuate in the future. We say this humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, John. Okay, to begin with, we have our meeting minutes from last meeting, October 21st. You should have those in front of you if you've had a chance to review them. I've looked through them. I see no concern with them. Anyone else have any thoughts, any concerns? Yeah. If not, could we get a motion to what's the word? Accept them?
Mm-hmm.
We get a motion to accept these minutes?
Go first motion.
Okay, and we have a second.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept these minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, next on the agenda, it lists new business, but John, I just wanted to ask, should we start to have an item on here for comments from the community? Or
We always are open for
just,
public comment where it's not a city council type meeting where.
okay,
So you could ask that, but we could definitely public comment.
we can either make them now or just any time when we're in discussion. I'm good with that.
Yes.
I really am.
We can add that next time.
Okay. I'm
a
really
great
good to
idea.
let anybody from the public who wants to make comments as we're going, please raise your hand. We'll go through and talk about it. First up on our list of new business is to introduce board members. We have a new board member, Elizabeth Robertson. Elizabeth, could we get you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in history and Santaquin and so on?
Well, I've lived here all my life, and I love Santaquin. I've been on the museum board with Annette and Katie, and I'm married, and I have 4 sons, and we have 18 grandchildren. My husband's name's Mike, and I work out at the Red Barn part-time, and I just love Santaquin, and I was really quite honored when I was asked if I would be on this committee, and I want to do everything we can to preserve Santaquin and the history that is there and has been there.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
We'll get to know us all better. Like I said, there's a couple others that I wish were here. Hopefully they'll be arriving.
Did Kurt get to introduce himself last time? Or?
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
I
But
couldn't
I
remember. I
can't-
remember on the bus we had you introduce
if you have
yourself
any
again.
specific
but-
questions that you want to interrogate me under, I'll submit.
We do have a new city council member representative that was unfortunately able to be here today, and he told me he had multiple meetings on the same evening. But in the future, Lynn Meekum will now be our representative. Dave Hathaway said to tell everyone hello, and he's got some new assignments as well.
Yeah.
And so we'll continue to invite Lynn and have him join us in the future.
Yes, and one of our past members of the board here has some kind of new assignment
that's right.
too.
Dan Olson Absolutely post to go be the mayor.
Former member
So,
is now mayor of the
that's
city,
great.
but we're going to still tap into him from time to
You
time.
bet. That's right.
Yes. So, okay. Well, thank you. We'd like to report a little bit about our reconnaissance survey update, and we have with us here Kirk Huffaker, who is performing this. He's with Preservation Strategies, and we're going to give him a little time here to explain what he is doing. But John and I met with him today, and we kind of drove around town with him, showed him town, told him a little bit about the history that we know of here in Santaquin. One thing we could say that as we got into the negotiations of the contract fee, we did not quite have enough money to do a complete survey of all of Santaquin. Is that right, John?
It seems, if my recollection is correct, that there's probably closer to 700 homes or properties, buildings, homes that are going to be surveyed, and so we're going to tackle 500 of the ones that are
Yes.
in the more of the core of the city, and tackle that first, and then see what's left. We don't have to survey every single piece of property in town. If we know that like Summit Ridge was completely, built afterwards, we don't have to go and survey all those homes. But
Yes.
we will work with Kirk maybe toward and after he's finished to determine how many are left. I
Right.
think we're going to get the majority of them in this.
Right.
first
As I
time.
recall, the boundaries were everything. It was west of I-15.
And I've got some maps I could pull up
Okay.
if you'd like to or do you want to talk first, Kirk? How do you want to do that?
I just wanted the board members to know roughly what
So let's
the
pull up the maps.
parameters
first. So
of the study.
there's the north side right there.
The north side, which goes down to, what is that, 4th North?
Yep.
4th North, and it looks like a little bit farther in the one area. And then it goes, I can't read the east and west,
Yep,
but
about 400 east, and the way it's marked is they'll get both sides of the road.
right.
So 400 east, 400 north, and about 300 west. Welcome.
Okay.
We see just about right over here.
And then on the south end,
Yep. Let me pull up the south map. And the south one, again, kind of 400 east, I-15. And then one of the things we're going to make a little bit of an adjustment here, if you see my little cursor, is instead of doing this shape here, we're actually going to come across 400 south, and then we're going to go down 300 west. There's some historic buildings right along as you're going out toward the Red Barn. From our tour, if you guys remember that, there's some historic homes along here. So we're going to adjust this line a little bit. This was the line initially, and then going to go up 300 west. So again, we're getting the core. The other one on the north side, let me pull that back up, that we're going to actually include as well, is right along 200 North, Lark Road. We're going to actually include that as well out to the railroad, the little old railroad depot. And there was a couple historic homes along that route as well. So this map will be updated, and again, Kirk's been great to work with us and say, hey, this is my parameter, but if I happen to see one house, 2 homes over that's historic, we'll just include that as well. And so he's been great to work with as we review that. So
okay. And most likely there will be a phase 2 of this survey where we'll go outside these boundaries.
and we don't know the exact size now, but
Right.
in a future, maybe the third meeting of the year, we could probably have that information.
And I think, again, when we use the term historic property, we're talking about a building, a structure that is at least 50 years old. And that's kind of where Kirk starts, I think, is identifying those. Kirk, if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about your company, what you've done in the past, how you propose to go about this survey, whatever
Sure.
else you have.
Well, thanks. Good evening, Commissioners. Chair Jones, I appreciate the time on the agenda today. I think we had some good discussions today and a nice drive around town, and then spent some time doing some research. So feel like I'm pretty well prepared for what's out there. So I did prepare this little outline that hopefully is in front of you. Is that right?
Yes, everyone has
Okay.
a copy.
Just about what the scope of the project is. So I am an architectural historian by training. I've lived in Utah 23 years. Have worked in historic preservation that whole time. Roughly 22 years of that at Utah Heritage Foundation, and now Preservation Utah as the executive director of that nonprofit. So really, I've spent my whole life helping people figure out how to save historic buildings. And that's really what I do as a consultant. And really, you're here at this first step in laying a solid foundation for what you want to save for the future. It's a great way as a certified local government or CLG to utilize grant funds to determine that baseline of your history and your historic resources in the city. And so that's really my charge, is to go out there and help you find what is important, what still looks historic, what is significant in terms of the stories they tell. And so I do that by creating a large spreadsheet of data. That's one of the products that you'll get out of this, as well as photo sheets of all of the properties and any significant outbuildings or accessory buildings, such as barns or large sheds, that sort of thing. And then a final report as well. And so my methodology is really just walking up and down every street, taking a photo, recording on a fieldwork sheet, what I see in the field, and then translating that into data. You get all of those field data sheets, you get the final spreadsheet, all the photos, both in full size and in contact sheet format, so that it's easier to look at as a big grouping. And then I produce a final report. And so it gives you a little bit of context for the history of the community, and I plug the buildings into that history. And then it has recommendations, and that's really the most important part of the State Historic Preservation Office, who's funded your grant, is those recommendations. So where do you go from here? They like to see potential historic districts as recommendations, or further research on individual buildings in terms of intensive level surveys or possibly National Register of Historic Places nominations. So things that can also be grant funded in the future by the State Preservation Office. There can also be recommendations, like if I know about some types of zoning that help preserve the character of the town, recommending that those zonings be enhanced or at least maintained to preserve that character. And so those are the types of things that you'll see in those recommendations. And I take feedback from all of you in terms of, what you feel that character is, what you feel is important. And when you see the data and the draft report, giving me feedback on, which buildings I may have portrayed not as accurately, or if you see something on the data sheet and you say, well, you just said this is just a regular house, but I know something else about this. So you are like the local experts that I rely on to help me bring out those stories and get the criteria right when we submit this data to the State Preservation Office. I just at the bottom of this outline, I just put kind of an example of what the field sheet looks like. So this is, if you can picture like 30 lines of this on a piece of paper, that's what I do, is I walk around with that sheet on a clipboard and I fill out all of these categories. It's a little bit of inside baseball for a lot of these abbreviations and acronyms and things. There's special codes that I have to use as an architectural historian, and I plug all those in. So,
Do you happen to have a legend or anything on these codes that you were referring to?
Yeah. There's a whole guidebook on what those are, and that's certainly available to you guys to see and to utilize. So, that the state maintains. Yeah. So that's kind of a little bit about my process, what I'll be doing. We're starting here in earnest this month. We did sign the contract late last year. Our hard deadline is at the end of June. So that's when I need to have everything into the State Preservation Office. So, my goal is, of course, to have something more in draft to you all probably around Memorial Day, if not sooner. So you have a little while to look at it, give me feedback, and then I have a chance to make changes to that.
And one thing Kirk mentioned to us earlier is sometimes he finds some people get a little concerned when they see him walking up and down the streets, taking pictures of their houses, looking around, and exactly, they think he's the tax assessor. Just relax. He's just looking over the town for any history here.
You get you a little lanyard that said Santaquin VIP, City of Santaquin VIP.
Yeah. So,
and it should say, please contact John Bradley if you have a problem.
There you go.
So
yes, I have done that before, actually. Yes.
And that would be fine. If you need to direct people our way, we can definitely help out.
Hopefully it won't be an issue.
Yeah. But
I do stay on public property. I don't walk onto people's private lawns and things like that, even though I might get a better angle of a building. It's the best photos I can get from the public right of way. I want to respect the residents here, and not bring any, undue negative perception on the Preservation Commission.
Right.
Do you use any, other than a camera, do you use any other technology to get your photos, or do you do any aerials or use drones at all?
Don't use drones, but yes, we did actually talk a little bit about aerial photography. It's always helpful to show a single property or multiple properties over time, because you can see back pretty far, and there are wonderful free state resources as well as resources you can get on the internet that I have access to as well that give you additional views. So those are helpful. But really in the field, it's just the camera.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, any of the board members have any other questions for Mr. Huffaker?
Can I throw out, while you're thinking about that, can you give us an example of another maybe city that you've done this type of work recently, or not recently, but just in the past? As an example, this city and we did this, and anyway, that type of thing.
Yeah, sure. So I did a reconnaissance level survey for Cedar City in early 2020. It was supposed to start in 2019, early 2021, but it was delayed from 2020. So, and surveyed about 450 properties in downtown Cedar City and the surrounding neighborhoods, and identified some strong themes in terms of the development of Cedar City over time, and and it goes up through 50 years old is what I look for. So we're talking about 1972 being historic now.
I'm historic.
And and as an architectural historian, it's a little challenging.
I think of the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, when you get into the 60s and early 70s, those buildings are a little more nondescript, and you have to do a little bit more homework on what those styles are to make sure they're identified in a survey. So, you get the Victorian stuff. That's easy. So Cedar City, we did a survey and produced the report. I presented to City Council at the end of that process. They were very enthusiastic, have great support, as I think you guys would, with a former Preservation Commission member now ascending to a leadership role here in the city. And so they're moving ahead right now with more research on a few buildings on Main Street, as well as 2 historic districts.
If all the buildings could just have a sign on the front like the museum that says what year they were built,
Yes.
that would just solve all the problems, right?
Right, so easy.
Yeah,
So
Well,
easy.
One observation we had as we were driving around today, we saw several homes which, by their style, by their shape and form and so on, we could tell that it's more than 50 years old. But we made this observation that the aluminum siding salesman's done quite well here.
Yeah. And then a more recent reconnaissance level survey, which was more residential in nature, was in West Valley City. It's going to be West Valley's first historic district. And it's a subdivision from 1959 through 1972. And it's a wonderful mid-century character that's fairly well preserved. And so it's totally different than what you'd see probably here or in Cedar City. But that just shows the range of architecture we have here in Utah.
Well, I think one interesting thing with Santaquin is it wasn't just a place for people to live. It was a place where people lived and farmed. There were a lot of orchards and farms within the city boundaries. So that's why you can go down the street and you can see an old home, and then several newer homes until you get to another older one, because the old farmland's been filled in with newer homes. So.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
Not right now. I think I'm well on my way. I'm going to wait for some warmer weather to walk the streets. So I won't be back for a little while. But I really appreciate the confidence of the city and doing the work. So I'm excited about it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.
And
Appreciate you
we
being
understand
here.
that you need to drive, so you're welcome to stay as long as you need, but you also are welcome to take off. So
That's right.
Thank you.
Then I won't miss reading time at home.
There you go.
That's right. Okay. Item number 3 on the agenda is number 5. The historic tour review. John, who's
And that
leading?
actually could be historic sites tour. I was envisioning people touring and visiting certain sites. So if the group recalls, Max Mitchell put together by hand, kind of a handwritten, if people could visit historic sites in the city, what would that look like? Yes, just like that.
Yeah,
So what we've done is I've efficiently passed the torch on to some wonderful help here with Annette and Katie, and we'll have you guys move forward up to the table, and they've got some copies of a draft. Our goal is by the spring to have this finalized and printed so that as people are able to get out and it is warmer weather, that they can drive around and visit. We'll put it both electronically as well as have printed copies. But they've been working really hard to develop this first draft, so we're going to have them talk a little bit about that. They've done some great things. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, we appreciate Max, who's not here, and Dan, who's not here, that started this. I think, was there anybody else involved in that? Mostly those two to start that booklet. What a great idea. So we appreciate that. And it's been really fun to dig into the history and go through our scrapbooks and that. We've got some really great historians in the past that have left us with information to make this possible. So that's been great. And they're at the museum if anybody else wants to dig into them. So I think that's what you dug into, some of it today. So we've got a rough draft here.
And Hattie's helped too.
And Hattie has
deserves some
been,
credit also.
yes, thank
I
you.
appreciate her help.
'Cause she has helped us a lot also. And I appreciate Katie because I dig through this stuff and then I hand it to her and she types it. You know, we're both working on it, but she's typed it up. So,
You know,
I
if-
don't know if there's
Yeah,
If you have any
just,
extra copies, it might be great to give one to Kirk.
Oh, yes, a paper one, and then I'm going to
I mean, I'm looking here at,
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
looking
so
at
you
some of
want-
these pictures you have
take a
and so
picture.
on, and I think it'd be great for him to have that.
Yeah, and like someone said. This is a rough draft, so we do have some holes to fill and
Yeah.
typos to fix, so just be aware of that. It's not perfect yet. But yeah, it's been a really fun project this winter for us to work on, and we really enjoyed it. It's fun. I guess we're in the right department for that,
Yes.
for that job.
Do you want to just kind of go through it just a little bit? I mean,
Just kind of basic.
yeah. Basic will have like the index.
Yeah, the basic index. We thought it'd be good to add just a little bit of Santaquin history at the beginning, how Santaquin got its name. So as you can see, there's just a brief history of Chief Guffick and Benjamin F. Johnson and how Santaquin became Santaquin.
Could I
Does it talk
just
about Squash Head too?
Yes, well,
No, I'm just. I love our park
Yeah.
name. I just love that. So.
yeah, because
could I
he was
just
known
ask,
as.
are these
Here, you
are these real photos of these two?
This isn't
Oh,
Guffick.
right, you're right.
Oh, we got a typo. That's not
Yes.
Chief Guffick. That's Chief
Sorry.
Santaquin.
But I mean,
Well, that's
are
why
these
we
real
call it a
photos?
draft,
Didn't
right?
notice that.
Yes, that's
So-
why.
So you can look in and say, okay, we gotta go
Yes.
back for another one.
Yeah,
So-
that really
Yeah, you
is
can-
the
They are
photo
accurate
of Chief
pictures, yeah.
Santaquin right
Oh.
there.
And that's
Yes.
my fault. I'm sorry. I did
That's
that.
No
okay.
worries, I
You know
didn't
what?
Say who it was, so sorry. That's my
We've got
fault.
Chief
More than
Guffick,
yours.
who is known as Squash Head. We've got Chief Santaquin, who's his son. I mean, they get kind of crazy.
It gets
so.
confusing, so.
But you've done great, Hattie.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, don't.
well,
Yeah,
after
you've-
she printed
awesome.
it, you know, there's one thing about the Hudson home. It's like, oh, I don't think that's on
Yeah.
the west. That's on
Kinda
the
like
south.
East.
scratch
You
that
know,
out.
so.
And we've
So
got
maybe
time to
with
work
those
through that.
copies, you can,
Yeah.
if you have anything
them.
that you know about or find out about, just make notes, and then when
Want
we
to add? Yes,
you can email us, and we'll.
we'd
fix
love
it.
to add and fix, so.
Yes.
Fix whatever.
It is nice having some of these colored, where available, colored pictures too.
Yes.
It brings it to life.
Yeah. Yeah, there aren't very many, but yeah, that sepia look just helps
Yeah.
bring some life to it, yeah. I don't know, you can just kind of flip through it and see
Yes.
kind of, I don't know if we need to go through everything, but
I think we need to. Well, we'll make sure Max and I think Dan gets a copy of this since they started it, and we changed a little bit of the wording and added to it. And so, if they know anything different, and also you, Elizabeth, that has been here your whole life, you know, we can certainly.
yes.
If you leave those with
great
us, we'll
resource.
get those. We'll hand them out.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Yeah, so one of the things we tried to do on some of them, if we had an older picture of the property or building, and then we had a newer picture, we tried to, you know, and have both of those on there, so. Where we could. So, anyway.
I don't know what else.
Okay.
Yeah, was there any
Any questions?
questions for us, or
Anything to add? We can
add right now?
take, we're up, open for advice.
John, you said the goal was to have this come spring. Is that correct?
Correct.
I just my thought. I would love to have it absolutely available and ready at the time of orchard days,
For sure.
and
Yes, that'd
make
be
that one
great.
of the activities that's printed in the booklet of
Yeah.
things people can do during that week, just
Yeah.
to take a little
Do you
tour.
like the larger copies? We thought instead of doing the smaller
I-
ones where there was
Like a
smaller print and
booklet or-
yeah, initially
Yeah,
I mean I think that was the design to make it very resourceful. I think we have the ability to just blow this up and make it a little bit easier to read and see pictures, and if that's okay.
Yes, I think especially where we have photographs, it's nice that they're a little larger.
That's what we
You
thought
can see more
also,
detail.
that
For those that are sight challenged, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Well, this is great. Now, are there more homes or more properties to be added into here?
Well, when we started doing this, we started making a list, and I even talked to Elizabeth about a couple that they're not in here, but started a list for maybe a second
Yes.
booklet.
Oh,
You know.
okay, okay.
Because not every,
Right,
you know,
because
there's a few houses and things that would be really nice to add to it.
Mhm. Because I'm thinking also of like some of the businesses downtown on Main Street, you know, some of those.
Yeah, those would be
And-
fun to highlight as well.
And is it the intent to have only homes and properties that are still in existence?
Well, for example, the Relief Society house isn't there anymore. It's not
Okay.
standing. So I think
Oh.
if we have some
If
information
the
there's a
on
railroad
it.
picture and someone has.
Now, is that the one that was right next to the what's now the library?
No.
So it was in Squash Head Park.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
did not
And
know
there's
about
So
a
that.
that
monument
one
there
was
now.
the.
Yes, and there has a monument. We were thinking about
Okay.
adding that.
What was the
picture
building that was just
information.
west of the library?
That was the
Was it a Sunday
was the
school
LeBaron
building or?
store.
the LeBaron store.
Am I right?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
then
that
they
was
used
the
it
LeBaron store.
for
The look.
other meetings.
Yes.
After it wasn't a store.
Yes.
So
Where is it?
is that
There.
right, Elizabeth?
I think so.
We've got a picture of Farrell
Right.
coming out of there after a scout thing or
Like-
something. There's
Which you bring up a
pictures
good
inside.
point. If we call it historic sites versus a tour, we just make a little note that this is no longer there, so
Right,
they're not looking around
Right.
for it.
Yeah.
Because we'll have a few of those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's great to be able to show those two where they were here for so long and are such a integral part of the history of Santaquin.
I know Dan Olson's talked a lot about the old brick factory that used to be here in town. I'm not sure where
We've
that was.
actually found a picture of that. It's John
Oh,
Chaplin.
really?
And
Oh, wow.
I found a picture and it's not a very good one, but they've got the bricks. They're over here and they've got bricks laid out to dry
Yes.
right in front. But I don't know where it is, so if he knew,
Okay.
I think it was
He
on
knew
the
the
north side of
location.
town. Have you ever heard
I
of the
don't.
brickyard?
And I don't know if it's possible to find anything, a photo or something way back of the old Fort Santaquin.
I don't know of any pictures.
Yeah.
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 We were
Okay.
talking,
Right,
if we
but-
couldn't find a picture, you could even do a diagram and do a little description like this and just say the
Yeah.
fort, estimated location, you know, dot, 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 dot,
Yeah.
dot, dot, square, this block to this block, and we could do something like that.
Yeah.
Give
Yeah.
people an idea of
Yeah.
where it
The
was.
most we've got is that fort is the rocks from that fort that are the foundation of the museum.
Okay.
That's what we've been told.
Okay.
So, which
Okay.
is pretty cool.
Great.
Yeah. So
Do any members of the committee here have any questions for them? Any thoughts you want to mention?
Well, I heard a comment that you're talking about doing a second version or a second edition. I think that that could be an ongoing thing for a good little while. I mean, you might even find some information that comes along later on
Yeah.
certain things,
Right.
sites
Especially
and
after we get this
locations.
survey.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, so
survey would be very helpful.
I think it's terrific, and if anything, it's always enriching to find out something new and say, oh, gee, this wasn't in the last edition, and now there's additional information. So I think it's just a great ongoing thing. So I think it's a terrific idea.
Well, thank you. One of my questions is, as we get to the final draft and print it, have it printed, what are we looking at? Then, I mean, it's not a large volume, so are we looking at like a spiral kind of, or the plastic bind, I mean, we'll have to
Yeah.
look into
You know what?
that, but.
I think we should look into that. We'll talk about the next year's CLG grant, and I think printing of this, I wanted to throw in, include something like that. But yeah, something that spiral
I don't know
where
whether
it's so thick versus one staple. I think that would make it even a little bit nicer too for keepsake.
Yeah,
Right, such that you can open it
You
and
can
leave it
open
out
And,
and it
and we could
doesn't
even have
curl
the
up
cover
on you.
be a little bit like a hard paper.
Yes.
And not only that, those
Bottom of the top.
that would actually purchase it, they're purchasing it for the intrinsic value. Something that's, like a pamphlet tends to find its way into the garbage can at some point. So,
that's
I mean, the effort and the hours that's put into this, the research we've all talked about, we've talked about several here on the committee that I've just seen the notes that have been on this. It's a lot of hours and a lot of time spent. So I think it should show that.
Right,
That's my opinion.
right.
And I would open that up to any of this committee. If you're interested in spending a little bit of time with Annette and Katie, they're at the museum several days a week, and if you want to go down there and take your notes and say, hey, these are my things in the next month, or give them a call, or even just go down and discuss certain things. What about this? They'd be more than happy to have you come down. So
I would appreciate
that'd be
it.
great.
Be great.
So, yeah,
Okay.
we're grateful for those two men starting it.
Yeah.
So that was, it was
Such a
good.
great idea.
Good idea.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate you coming here.
I'm gonna have you guys stay there for one more topic,
Oh, right
and
here.
I'll take those
Yes.
two. Or we can. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll,
Well,
thank you, Katie.
uh,
Oh, yeah.
item number 6 is the 2022 CLG grant application. Now, much like we received a grant from the state last year, which we're using towards this historic survey, we want to apply for this grant again for 2022. John, do you know the deadline, the timing
Yeah, so
of
the
that?
deadline is actually coming up in about the first or second week of February. I've got a paperback in my office, so I'll have to submit for that. The good thing with being a certified local government, CLG, and Kirk mentioned this, that's basically we've got permission to receive up to $10,000 a year from the state, and if we follow basic guidelines, we're guaranteed that money. Now,
Okay.
the only catch is it has to be a match from the local government. So
Right.
right now, last year, this current fiscal year, the city kicked in 5,000, and then the state kicked in 5,000, and that's what's paying for the reconnaissance survey. So come mid-year again, I think it very feasible if we wanted to ask for 5,000 again, or if we want to try to go more, we can if we have a plan. You have to have a plan on how it's going to be spent.
Right, right.
And that's why I wanted to have these ladies here to just brainstorm a little bit. A couple things that we've talked about using that money for. One is printing of these books. Annette had mentioned that there is a historical book that could be reprinted.
Yeah.
And maybe, do you want to mention that to the group? That's something that could be included, I think, in that.
Okay. So the book we would like to have the third reprinting is Santaquin Through the Years. It's the small, you know what it is, small gray book. And the second printing, we got permission to do the second printing because one of those ladies, Florence Lamb, was still alive. That, you know, so now all of those ladies that put together that book have passed away. But we have a lot of people that would like to look through that or buy it, and we've only got about 5 left that we have hung on to of that second printing. So a third printing would be very nice.
And is there any estimate from the Pioneer Press
You know what?
on that?
I've talked to them, but they haven't got back to me about a
Okay.
price. There was going to have a price of just a soft bound one. The original ones are hard bound, but as I talked to them at Pioneer Press, they do, you know, a lot of binding of different kinds of soft and hard. The ones they do in the soft covers, they do a nice job, and you open them up and they're not just falling apart. I don't know, they do seem to do a good job, but it's something they're going to get a price on both, you know. So
Okay.
it depends money-wise what we could
Well,
do.
and again, so imagine if we had
Yeah.
$10,000 to work with. We've talked about a potential second reconnaissance survey limited. Maybe we find that we needed another 100 houses, and how much would that, or properties, how much would that cost? The printing of a historical book would definitely be covered. Those are a couple examples, and then the very last item too is an item that could fall under that as well. Was there anything else that you guys had ideas of specific to the museum?
Well, you know, John, it seems to me, I mean, we're, you know, the commission here is just kind of getting started last year and this year, and we're doing some of these things, the survey and some printing. But eventually, I'm hoping we get to a point where it could be that the money that comes actually goes to rehabilitation of a structure. You know,
Definitely.
it could be that at one point we can get 10,000 from the city 10,000 from the state, 20,000, ask the museum, what could you use that for? New entrance doors, new some window rehabilitation. I mean, eventually it could get to that point. Where,
Does those funds have to be expended within the year they're granted?
Correct. So
Okay, so they can't roll over?
yeah,
or you're-
they can't carry over, and so that's why his timeline is the end of
Okay.
June. Is the grant money has to be spent by the end of June, and they've already paid us, and we have to just give an accounting of that money. The city's money also, city government's budget starts July 1 and goes the following year, so it's very similar to the CLG, the state grant. So what Ron said is exactly true. We just have to have a pretty good idea when we
Right.
say, when I apply for the grant, which is in a few weeks, exactly how that money's going to go. I mean, it does, printing and copying. I can give some generalities because again, we're not going to know
Yes.
exactly on that second round of reconnaissance, but I could use the concept. We have been doing some basic improvements at the museum, such as painting different areas and covering cracks in walls.
Lighting.
There's
did
and lighting last year that the
was
city
really
paid
good.
for. We realize that there's some significant large things there, like but they're so big that we really can't even throw $20,000 at a $200,000 roof and bat removal, or even restrooms and ADA accessibility could be hundreds of thousands. And so we realize that there's some larger things that need to be done there, and the city is being proactive in some of these smaller things, painting things that help beautify. We have some RAP tax money that's going in. I would almost recommend even we'd kind of brainstorm some signage at the building. At each door, there's some darker wood that's been named after different people, some historical things that's really hard to see. We've talked about keeping who that's named after, but maybe even replacing the signage at each of the different rooms so it's easier for the public when they come in to see what that room is about. Things like that, signage. Another topic for another day. I know we've kind of brainstormed this. When I was back in Nashville, Tennessee, I was walking up and down the streets as a tourist, and there was signs, nice big signs in front of different church buildings, and saying this building was built in 1875 or 1934, and it just gave a description. We could start looking at doing that. I mean, that would take a little bit of money to do some sign work. However, we'd have to have a little bit better plan
Yes.
on the signs, but eventually that could be a great project. So you're right.
Right,
There's
right.
a lot of great things that money can go to. I don't know if we're ready to ask for more than 5 right now, if we have things in mind that are specific.
okay. Well, I think over the next, when do we have to turn that in?
I would say the first week of February. I'll be working on
First
it.
week of February. Oh, it's right
It's-
away.
it's either
So
the
you have
first
to
or
have
second week,
the
but
plan by
it's
then.
literally the next 3 weeks.
Okay. Well,
And we won't be meeting as a group before then, so that's why I was wondering if there was any ideas, just brainstorming. As staff, we can put things together and come up with kind of a draft budget. But
okay. I have one other item here we'll talk about that could use a little bit of that money, but we ought to start brainstorming
Yeah.
where to spend this money.
the specific. Any other thoughts that just popped into your head, even without knowing how much it costs, but just ideas that you might have?
What are the years covered by that book, Santaquin Through the Years? From
It's 1856 to 1956.
I want to say, I think
okay, yeah.
Okay.
Is there a need for maybe a second post 1956 book?
It was Myron Olson did a history book of the stake. So I mean, it's a pretty good history. But I've heard that the Broadbents did a history book past that, and whether that's through the church or whether it's because Myron's was right. That one
Give us this
was a
mountain.
state
Yeah.
history, and I think the Broadbents had been assigned to continue that history. So I don't know, but I don't know what's
It's a good
going on
thought.
with that book. Yeah, but
Are you
it is a
thinking
good
of
thought,
maybe
but I
doing some
think-
additional printing, of making existing resources more available to the public?
Yeah,
Yeah, we could definitely do that.
and whether
I think
the
just-
Broadbents are still doing that, I don't think it's been printed. Do you know David Broadbent and Linda Broadbent?
I don't.
And maybe that's something I could check on because
Yeah.
we heard of that a few years ago. They were going to continue after Give Me This Mountain book. So
Is Myron's a printed book as well?
Yes.
Myron Olson?
that's
yes.
that
We had-
bigger blue.
We had that there
Oh,
with,
we were looking at that
with
gave
Kirk
a copy
today.
to-
Yeah.
Okay.
yes.
So that's Myron Olson, who's Dan's dad.
And did their family individually go ahead and print that?
No, it
No,
was kind of
it
an
was an
assignment he
assignment.
had from the stake.
Yeah, it was a stake assignment.
So I guess
And
follow-up
it
question
took
is,
in,
could we print more copies of that one as well?
it took in, Genola and Goshen and Eureka because they were all
More of a
within
regional.
that stake at that
But
time.
there's a
Someday we'll need
good,
that
yeah.
reprinted. Huh?
yeah, but
That's
I
we
would-
have got some left, but it could be reprinted. But it's got just great history of Santaquin in there.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a
I-
few pages.
I looked it up once on Amazon and they had a few copies
Oh, really?
available of it.
Oh,
Yes.
good.
I'd
Great
be
job.
interested in this other
Sure.
book you mentioned that you're seeking a price on from Pioneer Press.
Santaquin through
Oh,
the years.
Santaquin
Santaquin through the years. I mean, boy, I think if we could find out what the cost is to do another printing of that would be a
They would support something like that in a
Yes.
heartbeat
I bet
with
they
this
would
grant.
too.
Yeah.
yes. So, okay, well we'll look into all these things and get something.
Are there copies of these in the library?
I
Or
think
the
the
museum in the
library,
location?
Library.
they've got another book. It doesn't have pictures, but someone's put together, and the library has it. It's names. It's names of people and,
Oh.
So
Uh-huh.
they've got a different one that they sell. They used to sell there. Remember, it used to be on their counter to
Uh-huh.
sell.
I don't know if they do anymore.
I don't know
haven't noticed.
either.
That brings up you just primed a thought in my brain. At the Nephi Library, apparently during the centennial or something, every county did a book, like a history book,
Oh,
and they've got them for every county in Utah. There's a history book. I remember being in the library down there when I was working in Nephi one day at lunch break and looking at all those histories, and then from that somebody took that one and did a specific one where I grew up in Moroni. And so I've got a Moroni history book that's about this big, and it was been done in the last 10 years, and then they made it available to the public. We could, in the future, we've got all these different historical books. We could even look to how much would that cost to pay someone that's a writer to put something like that, take all those resources and come up with kind of a history book
yes.
that brings us all the way to 2021.
Yes.
That's
That'd be great.
Yes.
I have no idea how much that would cost and someone's time, but that could be something that we look at down the road.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
And make those available in the library. That's the place where people go to get books.
Well, one of our copies came from the library, so maybe they gave it to us when they moved the library from where it was in the city hall to across to the building when it was renovated. I don't know, but that's what I noticed. That it was a copy of that, but
Perfect.
but we'll
Thank you.
check into all
Okay.
that.
Keep up the great work. You guys are
Yes.
doing awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Okay. Item number 7, I actually have another item after number 7. But I've brought this up before about the new city town hall time capsule. And as you've seen, if you've driven by there, First South and Center Street, town hall's under construction, city hall's under construction. The basement walls are going in. They're probably about three quarters of the way in place. And especially when we get some warmer weather, we're going to start to see that thing pop up. The idea has been to create a time capsule, something that could be, it'll be kind of hidden behind the brick of one of the columns on the front of the building, and a time capsule would go in there. I spoke with Ben Reeves earlier, and he gave me some ideas. The one concern is that we have a good watertight box that could go in there. And he gave me some ideas on somebody who could possibly make us up a good heavy sheet metal box, that's watertight. So I'm going to go ahead and pursue that. Keep working on getting the box made up. And the other thing I would say is this: the goal is to have the time capsule put into the building at the time of the dedication, which I'm not sure if that's going to be late this fall, late with this winter,
say,
or early
12
spring.
12 to 18 months out. But
Yes, it's
if
still
you
a ways out.
anticipate having something ready by next spring,
Especially
case.
with the difficulties in getting construction materials right now, there's it probably won't happen till early next year. But this committee's been given the assignment to come up with the items for that box. I mean, for the time capsule. And like I say, I'd like to pursue getting the box itself, which, as I said, it's going to be, maybe 20 inches square by about 10 to 12 inches high. And we'll put things in through the end and then have it sealed up. But I'd like to see if anyone here on this committee would take the assignment of kind of heading up the gathering of artifacts, photographs, things to go in there. And there's all kinds of ideas. There could be, the on the political side, we could have, the mayor and city council of both the past mayor and city council and the new mayor and city council as the building is under construction. We could have things about the nation. We could have a newspaper or two. We could have, somebody suggested we put an iPhone in there. And somebody opens that up 30, 40 years from now and they look at that and say, what is this? What is this ancient device? But and as far as some of these funds, I don't know if we're going to have to pay for much of this. It might be pay for printing of some photographs or a few things, but we might want to keep a few dollars.
All these projects
Right.
in with this grant, and I think they'd be covered. So we would have, if we needed to print anything or
Yes.
or purchase anything, but
And
then Annette and Katie would be great resources too if there's anything that we need
okay.
to photocopy and stick in a sleeve or something as well. Other things that we need. So.
Yes. Well, I guess I'm just wondering if there are any members here who would like to volunteer to take on that, to put together a list, to, work with others and start to gather up these kinds of items. Or if you'd like, since Max isn't here today, we could nominate him and make him, Anyway, any discussion, any thoughts on that?
Those are fun to open 30 years later.
Yeah.
When you create them, it's not nearly as exciting as when you open.
You think, oh, who wants to look at this?
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a time capsule in the old junior high?
I have no idea.
We'll have to ask around and see if when that goes. But okay.
Anyway, that's. Any thoughts on that? I think if we just start putting together a list of things, and we can discuss them as we meet a little more and add to it, take away. We've got time. We've got plenty
we'll
of
have
time.
multiple meetings.
Right.
Maybe people can start thinking
Well, I
about
guess
it right
it's my thought is, how what's the scope? Do we want things that are significant to the city of Santaquin because that's really what it's all about? Or are we just talking about society in general? I mean, that's, I guess, is where we need to set the parameters.
I would think mainly Santaquin, but with a few.
Yeah, that's what I would think if
nationwide.
that's what was going to that
Yes.
times
But
capsule.
I think, people who open it, I don't know when, 30, 40, 50 years from now, if they open it and they look at it.
A
they
tour
say,
guide of Salt Lake.
You know,
What does that do
yeah.
here?
I
Yeah.
think one example would be our Orchard Days magazine.
Yes.
You know, an example of that's just a clear historic shot of, well, not historic at that time, but just a shot of the current, but yeah, 30 years down the road. Oh, that's who was the Grand Marshal, and these were the activities that they were doing, and something that's quantifiable.
And I would think something like a current aerial photograph of the city. And they could look at it and say, "Wow, look, we've built all this out here since then," and
Yeah, could another thought comes to mind is maybe and I don't have enough knowledge to even know this, to have maybe a coin or a token struck that could be made and then placed into the box as well. Significant, either the breaking ground of this building or of the city, and maybe some significant
and we
date
do have
in history
photographs.
for Santaquin.
We have photographs of the groundbreaking of it, but
Yeah,
yes,
just like a token that can be struck or made and then placed into the vault.
Yeah,
yeah,
love it.
yeah. I like these ideas. So I say I'd just like to start getting these all down in writing. So we'll think about that. If we want, we can discuss this at the next meeting, and hopefully we'll have more members here, and we can get that off and going, because I'd really like us to get that started. Like I say, I hope by next time I'll have a report back on the box, that we're making
I'm
progress.
happy to assist. I just don't feel qualified to be here long enough to have any deep insight as to what ought to go
Well,
into
everyone go back like you're saying and just come up with some. Just be
Y-
thinking
yeah.
about what would you
Why
want
don't
to
we do
see in
that?
30 years.
Why don't we
could
just
even-
give that as an assignment to everyone?
Yeah.
And
Go
you
back
could
and
even
be
Google
thinking. Put
time
together.
capsule examples of what
Put
others
together,
have done.
research time capsules. That's a good idea. Research time capsules. Come up with a list of recommendations that we could put in ours.
The idea is to let people know 30 years from now what it was like to live here,
Right,
to be a Santaquin citizen, 2022.
right, right.
Maybe I'll be all around 30 years from now. I'll open it up.
that. Well, you always say more than one.
Gee,
That's right.
I don't know. I don't know if I'll be around. I may not be around next year. I don't know.
We go.
Okay, the next item I wanted to bring up, but if any of you've heard the first city council meeting that was held on January 4th, in that Mayor Olson, boy, I still have a hard time saying it like that. He's just Dan to me. But anyway, Mayor Olson proposed a mountain trail park. Are any of you aware of that? Did any of you hear that discussion? I'll just briefly, John, if you can add to it, but
I'll pull that article that you've talked about.
the what he is proposing is that one part to meet the what was it, the request, or the thing that the citizens of Santaquin want more than anything is more parks and
Enough
trails,
open space,
things like
access
that.
to the outdoors.
And he says that we have 120 acres up in Santaquin Canyon, the city does, and he's proposing to build a trail park up there to be used for mountain biking, hiking, horse riding, things like that. And there's already a lot of trails up there, but he would like to develop these more, especially create kind of a trailhead on some of the city property with a parking lot. And he had some people there from some mountain biking rider associations that they're always looking for new places to ride. And they always are willing to come and help with volunteer labor in building this. And that's the thing, is he's proposing that this trail park be built almost 100% with volunteer labor. You know, it's not like we're planting grass and putting in sprinkler systems, things. It's just kind of clearing a path. But the other part of that is that affects us is that, and especially if you haven't been around here for a long time, there used to be a power plant up Santaquin Canyon. We have here this, as we were at the museum, we found this picture, and this picture, it was labeled as the first turbines at the Santaquin power plant. And they're just kind of near the mouth of the canyon. They had a power plant and a couple of homes of the people who worked it. And then what fed these turbines was a big, I don't know how big it was, 36, 48-inch pipe that snaked its way up the canyon to just below Trumbull Park. And then water was diverted into that pipe, and it was a wooden pipe. It was a wooden pipe for most of the canyon. It was about like I describe it as a wooden barrel, a long wooden barrel coming down the canyon. You know, just all these pieces of wood held together and forming a pipe. And it kind of rode along the top of the hills till it got to a point just above the generation plant. And then it changed to a steel pipe, and then it went down very steeply to the generators and turned these turbines. So he's proposing this, but he is proposing, he wants to go to the Forest Service and get permission to build a trail on the old historic right-of-way of that pipe that went up the canyon. And he really wants to approach it from a historic angle, that we're using that historic easement, and we're just, you know, we're going to try and help the people remember the history. And so there's all different kinds of ideas. It could be down at the parking lot at the trailhead. We have a little kiosk that could have photographs like this. But as Dan and I were talking, we don't know of any photographs of that old pipe coming down the canyon. We wish we could find some, or even more photographs of the power plant. And so, John, do you have that article?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I wrote an article for the February city newsletter. This is it here, you know, and I just titled it Historic Santaquin. And my first line there, I say, this will be the first of several articles prepared by members of the Historic Preservation Committee. You like me saying that?
You've just been assigned a new assignment.
You know, and then we're not saying this is going to be monthly. In fact, you know, it takes up quite a bit of room. Fortunately, this month they had room for this article, but sometimes it may just be a short article. We'd kind of like to help, you know, because we have so many people in town who haven't lived here longer than 10 years. You know, Dan and I were, or Mayor Olson and I were talking, and when he presented this trail system, I said to him, how many people do you think that were in that room that even know that there was a power plant and a pipeline up the canyon? And he said probably less than 50% of them, because so many people are new to the community. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of think that an article like this every once in a while would be great to educate the citizens of what has gone on in this city, you know. And especially to, I would think that, well, let me go on. Down here at the bottom of this, through the article I described what we had as far as a generation plant and a pipeline. But down at the bottom here, I said, we're asking citizens, anyone who has photographs of the pipeline, of the power plant, let us know. We give them John's phone number here to call, and we'll make arrangements to get their pictures one way or another and scan them and save them. And my concern is that a lot of these pictures may be in the hands of some of our oldest citizens. And what happens to those photographs when they pass? That's what concerns us. It would be good, and so this month it's the power plant and pipeline. Another month it could be that Relief Society house or any
It's
other.
funny, just discussing it already with Annette Bott, we found out that Annette Bott's family, actually, they have a whole bunch of pictures of a facility up there.
Really?
Yeah. And
Where?
She told me right before that, right up there.
Oh,
she
of the
said,
power plant.
Yeah,
Yes.
at the power-
She told me that too, but she said they didn't have the pipeline that she knew of. But
Okay.
but anyway.
But even getting stuff for the power plant adds another component. I guess what I'm saying is that things are going to come out of the woodwork, right?
Yeah.
As you start to ask people, and then maybe
That's what
they'll
we
say,
hope.
"Well, I don't have this one, but I have this one," or "Do you want to take both of them?" And I can work again with the museum staff on that effort as well. But I think it's a great start to gathering more history from the community.
Yes, I think so too. I think it's important that we do that and that we start.
Well, I
So-
like the fact that you're broadcasting that we exist and what we do. And I like the idea of having this sort of maybe a serial approach to Santaquin history.
I don't know if they can hear you on
Can you
the
hear me?
Yeah.
microphone
Okay.
or the microphone right
Oh,
there.
okay, sorry.
We have people at home listening to us, supposedly.
That educating the population about the history of the place is a great idea. Soliciting, letting people know we exist and what we do. I think there's lots of good reasons to keep doing what you did.
Okay, thank you. So, how does everyone feel? Would everyone be willing to take a time and write up something on a particular building, a site, or something like that? I think it's kind of fun. I think it's a lot of fun to do.
History has always been one of my favorite subjects. Probably the only thing that I ever listened to my teachers when I would learn about history. So I think it's so important just to preserve legacies. I mean, that we're dealing with people's lives, events. I mean, that's really what makes a life worth being a part of, a future to look forward to, and a past to build upon. So I think it was great what you did, Ron, on this article. I think that's terrific. So,
Okay.
and I think it's a good thing, like you were suggesting, that this exposes the committee as to the public as to what's being done in their city. And so I think it's terrific.
Yeah. Well, as I was writing this, I did some internet searches on Santaquin power generation plant and pipeline. I put that into the search bar, and I found that at the University of Utah Library, it says there that they have some kind of documents and diagrams of the power plant, and I think it even indicated the pipeline. And so at some point I want to go up there and look that up
Research
and
that.
see what I can get copies of. But yeah,
Good start.
I still wish we could find plans of the Fort Santaquin Fort.
Yeah.
I know.
Let's talk to several.
Yeah.
Indirectly.
So anyway, like I say, I don't know if we could do it once a quarter or something, but as if any of you have any ideas on any of these kinds of things and would like to write something up, please let us know, and we'll let you go and get you started on it. So, and we have to alert the city ahead of time, especially on how much space it takes, because they only have so much time in that newsletter right now. So,
And our department's allotted X amount of space. So if we just work with me, we'll just save space on a select month.
okay.
For X amount of space, and make sure that we save that. We can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's the last of anything I have. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to bring before the committee? Okay. Well, I guess with that, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Any second? Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, meeting's adjourned.